Hello, everyone. This is Mark Plaster, Senior Executive Editor of Emergency Physicians Monthly, and you're listening to EP Talk, the place where emergency physicians, aka ER docs, come to talk about things that are important to us, both professional as well as personal. And my guests today are from Pulsara. And James Woodson, I'll start with you. And why don't you just tell me just a tad about Pulsara?
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you. Appreciate you having us on. So Pulsara is a communication and telehealth platform that's designed to connect teams, even teams that are located across organizations. So really what we do is we enable clinicians to facilitate these interorganizational care teams dynamically and on the fly, even during the middle of a medical emergency. So all the data, the communication, all that kind of stuff are centralized, streamlined, and time-stamped so that you have a single source of truth for every individual case. So this helps us both accelerate care, really simplify the complexity of the treatment, especially for things like time-sensitive emergencies and now things like COVID, where we can really enhance outcomes as well as improve financial performance.
Okay, let me see if I can put that down into an everyman's kind of language. You actually are a platform that's pulling together a lot of their medical information. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's think more communication and logistics components of it. So I'll kind of use some examples of think about public safety and an event. So in a major fire or a major public safety event, you have multiple organizations that are there. They're responding to a single event. What do they typically do for communications when they're doing that?
They set up some sort of a command center oftentimes, but oftentimes that doesn't come until an hour or two into it when everything's already happened.
Yeah, a lot of things though. Yeah, you're right. Sometimes they don't, but what they do is they open up a comms channel, a single comms channel.
Right.
And one of the key things that they do, you have these components of logistics, of data or information, and of communication, and that beautiful Venn diagram, kind of that center, that's where they're all focused on. And if you look at the communications aspect, one of the key things they do is open up a single communication channel for everyone to use, all the different organizations and the individuals that are responding, so they know what's going on around that event. Now take something like a stroke. Right? How many individual care team members, clinicians are going to be taking care of a stroke patient, let's say an LVO stroke patient. So how many clinicians does it take to take care of a large vessel occlusion stroke patient?
Oh, gee, a bunch. Yeah.
A bunch, right. How many different organizations does it take?
Well, yeah, you got pre-hospital, ER, the cath lab, the stroke team. Yeah, it's a lot of people.
Yeah. It might even go across different organizations. And is the same care team going to take care of the patient every single time?
No, it'll be different people.
No,
yeah,
different people, right?
Yeah,
no trick questions here. Yeah, absolutely.
No, I know. So, I'm thinking about it. And you're actually saying, in our situation, I'm in a city environment where maybe one stroke center is available, and then next time it's not, and I have to go to another stroke center, and so I've got to reconfigure the whole team on the fly.
Exactly. And so the other question then is, how many phone calls do you place during one of these things, right?
Well, I wanted to just put a gun to my head, because that's the problem. That's exactly right. And you make a call, they call back, they miss you because you're with somebody else, and you're walking around. Maybe you've got a cell phone, but you're in the middle of talking to somebody about something serious, and you got to step out to take a private phone call. Oh my gosh,
yeah,
no, it's an issue.
Exactly. So that is the exact problem we solve. Okay, so. For every single individual patient, time-sensitive emergencies are a great example of large vessel occlusion stroke. We open a dedicated patient channel that can be used. Different than a comms channel in public safety. That's just an open mic. It's only live. So if you're talking over people, but you're only dealing with one case at a time, right? One incident at a time. Well, for this, that doesn't work on the healthcare side, right? Because you're doing multiple different things. But the goal is the same. We need to be able to create a shared consciousness around an event. And in our case, what we do is we open a dedicated patient channel. you can now dynamically build your care team on the fly. So wherever the case starts, EMS, it's an ED walk-in, it's interfacility transfer. God forbid you're an inpatient. You all know that if you have a STEMI or stroke on the floor, your treatment times and outcomes are worse, right? It doesn't matter how you start. We create a channel. You can dynamically build that care team on the fly with a touch, just adding the new individuals in. And then how do we create that shared consciousness around that patient event? Well, there's synchronous communication, which is live audio, live video. So everybody on the platform has access to live video, but there's also the asynchronous data, asynchronous communication. That's moving data, integration with partners, with other vendors. There's team chat or team communication, all kinds of other things, audio clips, photos, all the things that we normally write on our glove or on the tape on our pant leg in the out of hospital world. We're able to very quickly put into the platform to create that shared consciousness for that patient event. Then all of that data that you're talking about, it can flow into your data repositories, whether it's the EHR or the EPCR.
Yeah. That's amazing because, I'm on, I follow a lot of EM chat boards and things like that. And it's amazing that the younger generation are literally conferring with their colleagues in real time on cases. I've got this case, and it's there's no data, there's no no personal information on it, and yet people are logging in and saying, "Nah, I think that's it. That it's like a group effort, and it's actually making care a lot better." And we would never. I mean, I've done 30 years of nights, and I was always a solo doing that by myself with nobody to help, but whatever I could look up in a book or on my laptop or whatnot, and that was always helpful. But you're really talking about live collaboration and collaboration as well as
because it's yes, sir, it's communication and care collaboration, and because it's fully HIPAA compliant, secure, all that stuff, you can include PHI on it. So all the texting that we do behind the scenes to our partners, because we all know our friend's number, right? Yeah, don't look at my old phones, please. I've actually broken with a hammer just to make sure they're safe, right? But now what we can do is, because they're HIPAA compliant and secure, not only within your silo, within your organization, but you can do it across other organizations. Yeah. So a good example, when I was building Pulsara, and actually for a couple of years before, I was also a night doc. So imagine a hand laceration with a tendon lag.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't know how to do is follow it up, right? But there's three options that I can do. I can totally repair the tendon, have them see it in the outpatient. I can wash it out, tack it together, have them repair it as an outpatient, or I can transfer it. How many people are building video platforms to be able to have those interactions across organizations that are secure, that you're able to do that? We only think of telehealth stroke. Well, what about all the phone calls that I've had in the past that now have a video call, or what we call a Pulsara call, which can be, group, it can be individuals, whatever. Sure. You can create that shared sense of consciousness by using the technology that you carry in your hand, in your pocket.
Yeah.
No hardware costs.
We're doing that more and more. We're kind of hobbling it together. The other day I had a patient that had a complex fracture. Well, this is not the kind of thing that necessarily needs to come into the hospital, but you don't want it to drop. And that certain people, it's a hand. Where's that going to go? Is the hand guy going to take it? Well, we don't have a hand guy right here, so we got to go to somebody else. And so, I could actually send him the film, talk to him, have him look at the film and say, this is what I think's going on. You can see him next week, right? Or do you need to see him tomorrow?
Right.
Yeah. Collaborative care. That's the best. It's absolutely the best. And emergency medicine is probably the best platform for that. And interestingly enough, the thing that you're opening up in, I'm sure that this is not news to you, but I was talking to Tim Peck, who did Call 9 a while back, who was putting paramedics in nursing homes and with a minimum lab, and they were able to cut down the number of elderly patients coming to the emergency department by about 40 40%, which interesting
Mm-hmm.
translated to a 40 billion with a B dollar savings to Medicare. 40
Right.
billion. And now there was some issues about how the law was behind the legislation was behind the curve, so it didn't really work. But it's going to work. It was just he was too far
Mm-hmm.
ahead of the legislative curve. But the point of it is he was pulling together a collaborative care, like what you're talking about, and just not the ER doc. The ER doc could turn around and incorporate somebody else. And let's talk about this patient. Do they really need to come in? And what are some things we could do in the nursing home? We could have cut down a lot of COVID deaths if we hadn't drug all these people from hither to yon.
Right. And you talked to a very specific point there that I think is important. If you look at most communication and telehealth solutions, especially the ones that are inter-organization, they're point to point. You have a very specific solution that's designed to go from this fixed endpoint to
Right.
this fixed endpoint. You can't take something undifferentiated. This is what separates Pulsara. In general, you can't take something undifferentiated. This is what we do. And then add in another resource. Oh, this is what we now know. Let's just add in another resource, add in another resource.
Yeah.
That can be within my siloed organization. But if they're part of the Pulsara network of providers, you can just one tap, add them in, and now everyone has access to each other.
Wow.
So you can dynamically build that care team on the fly, which is critically what separates us from other telehealth solutions that are out there.
In my list of questions here, I wrote down what do we need to see that you were trying to fill by founding Pulsara. I think we've kind of gotten there, but
We have.
say it succinctly. We're trying to tie people together in a time-sensitive, dynamic, HIPAA-compliant format. Is that right?
That's correct.
Tell me about, speaking of, we were talking about COVID-19. What did you guys do when the pandemic hit the United States? How did that impact it? I'm waiting for you to hit that one out of the park, because I know that was a big issue, having people separated and not able to get into the hospital.
Right. No, absolutely. And so what we did, or let me kind of take a step back. First of all, our purpose, we're a very mission, vision, purpose-driven company, and our purpose is to improve the lives of patients and caregivers. And so we actually started kind of our COVID-19 response at ground zero there in the Seattle, Washington area. One of our clients was there using Pulsara. We were watching and listening to how they were using it. There were a lot of needs that were out there, especially in the early days in that initial response. And so we put together a group of solutions, really just leveraging our platform, but really narrowing it down. This is how you can leverage Pulsara to limit clinician exposure, to preserve PPE, other things to load balance or help people choose appropriate destinations. There was a huge need with communicating with family that we didn't really think about or realize at the time, which obviously a lot of family members can't visit their loved ones in the hospital, whether it's COVID related or not. So how do you open up a secure video communication between patients, providers, and family members? So we were analyzing this, looking at all this in the very early days, and realized there was really no time for clinicians, for facilities, for organizations to come together and adopt Pulsara through the normal means. And so what we did, because of our purpose really of focusing on how can we improve the lives of both patients and caregivers, we decided to offer Pulsara for free. So anybody that needed Pulsara, we basically offered our solution for free. We also rolled out Pulsara Patient, which is the ability to convert any phone call into a video call. So imagine 911 goes to dispatch, they identify an influenza-like illness, they can convert that to a video call and even decide whether they want to send a truck, do treatment in place, or send them to a testing site. We loaded all of that up and allowed anybody to use it. We also formalized our MedOps package, which is for like medical operation centers or EOCs, those type of places. So the response was overwhelming. We actually added hundreds of organizations in the middle of the pandemic. So imagine adding or changing your communication workflows in the eye of a hurricane. That's literally what we were able to do. Onboard groups in as little as 4 hours. And so now what we're doing is expanding within that user base that came on then. We're helping them expand the utilization beyond COVID. And we're working with large regions as large as states at this point for infrastructure that will not only help the organizations in the communities prepare, mitigate, and respond to COVID, but it's going to really serve them for years to come as a robust inter-organization communication and telehealth platform.
Well, you said something here that kind of hit me caught me by surprise. It's the free word. These are expensive systems. You're talking about something that really has massive potential cost and obviously development costs, but also implementation costs. And the other guest we have on the line is Anna Larson. And Anna, you are actually helping them with a funding assistance proposal. And I'm going to ask you, is he crazy for doing this, putting it out there for free?
Well, I'll be honest. It was, it's not a very large company. We're growing though, clearly at this point. It came to us as a surprise, but it at the same time felt right and really good because, the beginning of the pandemic, you think about there was so much uncertainty around, job security and different things, and it's not business as usual. And when our typical customer is a hospital, hospitals were flooded, right? Not able to do the things that they would normally do. Meetings can't be held in person. Everything changed.
Yeah.
So we leaned in, and it has been remarkable.
Well, okay. So he's not crazy. He's actually a good guy trying to do the right thing at the right time. But the question is now, how are you going to pay for it? How are you doing that? What's the give me the structure of the funding initiative.
Sure. So the funding initiative was essentially the result of seeing just gobs and gobs of money come out of the federal government for response, help with mitigation and preparedness for coming waves, right? So we quickly saw, in addition to that, that, like you said earlier, telemedicine changed instantly, right?
Yeah.
Like people became comfortable with, this kind of communication with the Zoom and Microsoft Teams and all that stuff. So, so a lot of the funding was actually directed around telemedicine because it met the need as far as allowing people to stay home, not necessarily have to travel to the hospital to be seen, or even for the paramedics, they don't even have to go in the home necessarily, right? There can be, it fulfills the social distancing need. So, so we also know that, my background is a little bit more on the EMS side of the world. I'm not a clinical provider, but I know from the grant world that there's funding out there for things that people don't necessarily know how to get access to. So we basically decided to do the research, do the homework, get the information, and then at the same time find out from people, what problem are you trying to solve specifically in your area? Is this a in your hospital thing? Is this a regional effort because you have rural communities that you're serving? So, so essentially we find out what's the need and try to match them with the resources that we think are the most likely for them to get, the lowest hanging fruit, and kind of facilitate that process.
So what you're actually saying is that you have the answer to a problem that they've known was there for a long time, but didn't know there was was really a solution to it. It's just one of those frustrations of trying to put it together. And you built that model, but obviously that model is going to have some pretty good price tag to it. So instead of trying to build it yourself, what you're actually saying is that there's a lot of potential sources, a lot of different sources for people to be able to access this kind of technology. And you're opening the door to them to say, yeah, you want this, we can show you how it works, and this is how we would recommend that you would go about paying for it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, to some degree. There wasn't actually a requirement that they wanted to purchase Pulsara or even be a Pulsara customer. It was so a little bit broader than that in terms of just wanting to help people with recovery, first of all, because that initial wave was, it didn't hit everywhere in the nation, but the places it did hit, got hit pretty hard. And
let me rephrase the question. I'm still struggling with the idea that the service is being given away, and yet you're talking about helping people find grants and that sort of thing. So it seems to me like what you're actually saying is we're helping you find the sources that will pay for the service. It's still, if I understand correctly, I mean, obviously these aren't, you're not doing this for your, you're a good guy and all that, and I appreciate that. But at the same time, we have to pay programmers, we have to pay for hardware, we have to pay for the system, and you're just simply saying we're going to we're going to not only provide the system, but we're going to show you ways or help you find ways that you can actually pay for it.
Yeah, Mark, and let me actually clarify one thing as well. So in our initial response to COVID, really helping people respond, we were offering the solution for free. At this point, one of the problems that they didn't have was it was pandemonium. Everybody was trying to figure out, how do we open up telehealth platforms? Budgets were tight, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
one of the
hospitals,
key differences,
revenues dropped, by 50% in many cases.
Absolutely. And even now, if they were trying to purchase something new, even if they knew they had the need, there's so much insecurity around budgets and that kind of stuff now from a self-funded opportunity. I think it's really important to take a step back and realize that there are literally billions upon billions of dollars that is funneled down from the federal government to state and then local, and is being divvied up across the country right now. This has been done before. Think back to 9/11. We're still consuming dollars and grants that were released after 9/11 because they realized the new infrastructure changes that needed to be there. Sure. That is exactly what's going on now. And so what we're doing right now is helping match people to the appropriate funds for this new infrastructure. So at this stage, Pulsara, new clients that are coming in are paying for Pulsara, but they're leveraging these funds to pay for it. And or to Anna's point, there are some that we don't find a exact need or fit, or they can't get the right providers, that we're also helping them match to funds to help them. If their need isn't something that Pulsara can solve, we'll still help them kind of navigate that process. So, but a lot of those funds are being used to purchase Pulsara now.
The analogy that I make is going back to, if you will, the development of the highway system in the United States. It came out of a period of economic hardship when a lot of people were in tough shape, and it was not just it was not intended to just put people to aimless work. The idea was use this as an opportunity to really move the country forward and link a lot of different things together by highways and trains and telephone lines and now fiber optic and this, that, and the other. And what you're really saying is that, if I understand correctly, you're saying that we experienced something very unique in COVID-19, and that is a demand that we immediately separate into our atomized groups and try to continue to work, especially with healthcare in that setting. Mm-hmm. And so we needed to build a highway very, very quickly that would share and continue our high level of healthcare, but required collaboration, required people talking to each other and seeing images and seeing, and in real time. And so what you're saying is that COVID and this broad umbrella of how the federal government, having run for Congress, I understand how federal government, the one thing the federal government does is spend money. That's really all they do. Sometimes they get in your way, they do a lot of bad things, but the one thing positive that they do is they spend money. And when we have a national crisis that really affects pretty much everybody, they go out and really open up the floodgates. There's a drought, so to speak. They open up the floodgates to try to attack this. And yours is just simply saying, here is a way that we can hope we can put everybody together. It's not free. Infrastructure is never free. Oftentimes infrastructure is very expensive, but this is something that will improve healthcare forever. I was going to say decades, but it's forever if we change the way we see and do healthcare, collaborative healthcare, and a new set of highways and train lines and tracks and such, so that everybody is communicating back and forth and care is improved. So, should the federal government be involved in some of that? Absolutely, that's their role. That would be an appropriate role for community wealth. So
yeah, I was going to say absolutely love your analogy. Love your analogy of the highways. One of the things that people have been focused on for years is interoperability, but it's an interoperability of data. They're only thinking about the EHR, but you and I, the individual provider, we've kind of been left out of that. And so now from a interstate system or even just a state highway system kind of mentality of being able to connect everyone to everyone else, we are actually connecting the people, not just the data. The data can flow through this as well, but we figured out how to connect the people, the individual clinicians that are actually delivering that care. That is so different than just focused on interoperability of data. And so we have, so it's federal funding handed down to the states, and now states are purchasing Pulsara at a state level, where imagine every single acute care provider has access to everyone else with a video platform that can dynamically build that team on the fly and have that video interaction and create a shared consciousness for an event, whether it's a time-sensitive emergency, whether it's pre-hospital, whether it's hospital-to-hospital interfacility. We can do it for well-defined workflows and undifferentiated workflows, but it's exactly that, creating that highway with on-ramps to be able to get the right people on behalf of that singular patient.
Yeah, and it's what your point of connecting people instead of just say charts is a reflection of the fact that I as a clinician, you as a clinician, have a whole lot more to say about a particular case than just the nutshell that gets translated into the medical record. And if you and I, your brain and my brain can get together and discuss what we're seeing, there's a lot more there, a lot more. I would consider this and that, and so it's not just the product that's being carried on the highway; it's the intelligence that are being joined together across, hopefully, eventually across state lines. In which we start to share with one another. And I want to come back to you. I want to say that I want you to flesh this out just a little bit about if I were to come to you and say, okay, I like what I see, what would be the physical steps that you might do, that you might take with me and start to flesh out funding for the Pulsara system okay, so James comes in and he identifies a need. Okay, we can do this, and this. Okay, and obviously building that list will build essentially the cost. And I know James wants to give it all away, but James can't do that. And so he's going to come to you and say, Anna, help us find ways to pay for this. What is it that I would just sit in front of you and say, okay, Anna, how am I going to pay for this?
Okay, great question. So, essentially, each of the programs that are existing, and they're usually with the major players like FEMA and Health and Human Services, and the CDC actually had a supporting public health capacity for tribal nations effort going on, and the FCC had a telehealth program. So there's all these different buckets of money out there, and I distilled down who's eligible for what. And so, and then also based on what are the examples of things that the funds can be used for. So for Pulsara specifically, we narrowed it down to things around care coordination, telehealth, telemedicine, and sometimes they even would pay for devices and hardware. So you know, some like an EMS outfit might not have smart devices on their rigs, so you'll need to get some of the you know, actual equipment to help them be able to be on the platform, because it's a mobile platform. So it's kind of a connecting the dots process basically, and if a specific organization doesn't meet eligibility criteria for one thing, they might, if they partner with public health or if they partner with the nonprofit hospital in the region, and it goes back to that conversation around collaboration and the bigger brain and that shared consciousness around patient care, you know?
Yeah, my son actually happens to be the vice president of a Native American corporation that's located in a remote island in Alaska. And he is their hands, eyes, ears in Washington, D.C. because of his background with the military, and he had some political aspirations, was invited to be on the National Security Council and such. And so they came to him, and it's like James probably comes to you and says, where do we find the funding? Who do we talk to? What are the forms we fill out? What are the wickets we have to jump through in order to get some of this funding? And you have to know where those pots are, what you need to say and do in order to access those. You'll get this one, but you won't get that one because you qualify for this. You're Native American, you're not Native American. You can go up to 100 million if you, you know, so on and so forth. They have, he has the ability, as I'm sure most people don't understand, that certain groups can get government contracts. The Native American contracts can go up to $100 million, non-compete $100 million. So you should probably talk to my son.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing. But you know, if you have a need, James, you've outlined the need. You've outlined the response that we can fix the need. And the next question, of course, that'd be great if I could pay for it, but I don't actually have the money to do that. And Anna says, well, that might not be true. No guarantees.
Exactly. And set one other thing that you can do just to keep to really simplify it down for your last step. You can just go to pulsara.com/funding, and it launches the process. So if you had to only know one thing for how do I find the money, it is just go to pulsara.com/funding. You fill out this very, very simple short form. And then Anna, in all of her hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of hours of research, gets going and simplifies it for you.
Hey, you know what? There's nothing like when you're dealing with the government. There's nothing. What we in the Navy, Marine Corps, we called them admin bubbas. If you had an admin bubba in your group who just knew how to weave his way through the forms and the programs and such, he could get you what you wanted, and nobody else could figure out how to do it. That's one of the problems of a massive bureaucracy like we have. But the stuff's there. It's there if you know how to access it, how to say the right words to the right people, and you can do that. And when you're dealing with large sums like this, particularly from the federal government, they do their best. They do their best to try to keep a handle on that. So you have to have someone who kind of speaks Washington, speaks federal bureaucracy. Sounds like Anna has at least a fluency in that. nobody does it perfectly, but you sound like you have some fluency in that, huh?
Well, I think
Absolutely.
you read enough notice of funding opportunities, otherwise called NOFOs, or guidance documents and frequently asked questions. And the
Yeah.
government actually, I'll say they over communicate on this topic. So sometimes it's overwhelming because you get almost too much information about eligibility and criteria and deadlines, and you have to have a sam.gov registration and all these just little tiny
Right.
things. So
Right.
it is kind of simplifying it, breaking it down, trying to lower those barriers, make it accessible, because it's there and they actually want you to have the money. So it's just a matter of jumping through some of those hoops.
Yeah. Well, guys, this has been fascinating. James, you've opened my eyes to an expansion of capability that I honestly didn't know existed. I mean, I'm at the trucking stage and not the person-to-person communication stage. And like you say, we've talked about interoperability of EHRs, but we really have thought that personal communication was really a bridge too far. And what you've shown us with Pulsara is that that's not really a bridge too far. Not only is it doable, but it's actually desirable. And now we have the opportunity to actually make it happen. So repeat that website, pulsara.com. Is that right?
Yes, the website is www.pulsara.com. And if you're interested in the funding opportunity specifically, just /funding.
Great. That's great. That's fantastic. And I'd enjoy writing a little bit more about it. I hope that we'll get a chance to do that in Emergency Physicians Monthly. And for all of the physicians and non-physicians who have joined us on EP Talk, I hope you've enjoyed this. And if, like me, your eyes have been opened up to opportunities. And actually, it's not one of those things. Even though it's a big, big mountain, there's plenty of help out there to help you climb it. So. If you are least bit interested, James Woodson and Anna Larson at Pulsara are going to be there to help you out. So thank you for joining EP Talk. I hope you come back again and join us sometime. And hope everyone has a great day. Bye-bye.